So I'm literally the last thing standing between you and lunch, so I'm going to move through this pretty quickly. I'm Rich Shea. I'm the president and CEO of Vascular Pharmaceuticals. The company was founded based on research done at the UNC School of Medicine in Chapel Hill in the labs of Dr. David Clemens, longtime head of the endocrinology group there, as well as Dr. Laura Mail, who's with me in the audience today. We're tackling diabetic complications, so not treating diabetes itself, but treating several of the downstream complications resulting from a patient having long-term sustained hyperglycemia. So I'll talk about our lead clinical population, and there's utility in our approach in several different complication states, but we picked diabetic nephropathy as our first case, and we're currently in phase 2. Our product is an injectable biologic. Unfortunately, diabetic nephropathy is not a rare disease. It's global in scale. It tracks the increasing incidence of diabetes in the global population. The long-term outcomes for patients are highly negative, and both for the patient, but from a societal perspective as well. As you can see on the slide, this is the leading cause in developed countries of patients progressing to dialysis care. These patients are very expensive to care for. The most recent estimate I looked up had the average cost to Medicare of caring for a dialysis patient in the high 80s. It is the largest single line item in the Medicare budget, and the current standard of care, which is antihypertensive therapy to maintain good blood pressure control, does have an effect in terms of slowing down the progression, but it's not a cure. It doesn't stop it. So there's clearly a need for new therapies in a patient population that is both very expensive to care for, but suffers very high mortality and morbidity. So how are we tackling this problem? I talked about our connection to Chapel Hill. Our lead program is in diabetic nephropathy with our injectable biologic. We're currently in phase 2, and what we target is a cellular signaling pathway, and I won't get into the biology in much detail here, that gets stimulated in the presence of hyperglycemia. So if a patient has high blood sugar, this signaling process goes into overdrive. And the problem is it leads to some downstream negative effects on several key cell types related to creating damage in diabetic patients that leads to decreased kidney function in the case of nephropathy, but also diabetic retinopathy and accelerated atherosclerosis. So in the case of the kidney, this receptor we target, alpha V beta 3, is expressed on 3 key cell types in the kidney that are involved in the maintenance of effective filtration function, so the kidney functions as designed. The challenge is as these cells are negatively effective and die off due to this process, underlying signaling process, kidney function declines over time. And so this is a truly disease-modifying intervention. If we can prevent that cellular damage in the kidney from occurring, we hope to be able to prevent the progression of the disease, which would lead to a much better long-term prognosis for this patient population. I'll talk just briefly through the history of the company. We have been around since the mid-2000s. In 2009, entered into an early development collaboration with Janssen Biotech, a division of Johnson & Johnson Corporation. We worked with that relationship and SGTR phase 2 funding to progress to the point where we raised our initial Series A round in late 2012. And at the same time, also decided to enter into an option to acquire agreement with Janssen. They have and continue to be just a tremendous partner, highly supportive of the program, share our vision of where it can go for patients, and we, to this date, maintain a very close relationship with the folks at J&J. We've progressed through phase 1, et cetera. We're in phase 2. It's a 300-patient study. The end of this study, which data will be available sometime in 2017, will trigger Janssen's buyout option. So that's our pathway over the next several years. And we recently announced, in fact yesterday, an expansion of our Series A syndicate led by Lumera Capital, and I think Jerry Brunk from Lumera is here in the audience today. And we wanted to ensure we had sufficient capital to drive the phase 2 program on this timeline. Enrollment's pretty competitive in this space, so we brought in 2 new investors, and Lumera's a great add to the syndicate, a lot of experience in the renal area, and we're real excited to have them. The next event for us will be some interim data, which we'll see about a year from now, and to see if we're on track. But the seminal event for the company will be completion of this phase 2 study, which will trigger Janssen's option. So we try never to forget what we're trying to solve. It's a big problem. It's global in scale. It's very costly from a societal standpoint and very negative for patients. So we're really excited that we have a chance to make a real difference in this area. With that, we can move on to lunch.